On Saturday, my teenage daughter, convinced me to go to the movies, and she knew just what to see, The Kingsman. And she knew just what to say to get me to see this movie. She said, "It has Colin Firth." Let's see, this doesn't work. Okay, so I'll do it that way. It does indeed, as a main character. I don't know how many of you have seen this movie. It's the main villain in this. It's sort of like a parody of a James Bond movie, where Colin Firth obviously plays James Bond equivalent. And the main villain in the movie, he is a former IT billionaire who's been fighting for years to fix global warming, but has come to the conclusion that it cannot be fixed the way we're trying to fix it. It's just hopeless. So he decides that some radical measures are required. Much like Julian and Ingmar Persson have been arguing that some radical measures are required. Although the villain obviously decides for something rather more aggressive, he decides that the solution is to wipe out 99% of humanity. That would solve the problem. And moreover, he decides to do it by changing people's desires, people's psychology, namely by using electrical signals via people's iPhones to make them incredibly aggressive, so aggressive that they swiftly kill each other off, except the 1% are off in bunkers and stuff. And then we have much less people and problem solved. Now, of course, what we are being told here is not that we should get more aggressive, but we should get less aggressive, and that will solve the problem. We should increase our sense of sympathy, sense of justice. We should become more altruistic, and this can be done by going directly to the source, using bioenhancement to change our desires. And as always, when it comes to grand schemes like this, there are two questions. First question is, should we do it? And the second question is, could we do it? Or maybe in the other order. One has to remember what the main thesis is here, as Julian was making quite clear. The thesis is not that we should go ahead and sort of morally bio-enhance people right away. Now the thesis is that we should develop the means to do this, or look into the possibility of developing these means, at least. But there is implicit in the book that if we do develop these means, we should do it. It's a good idea. And I will actually focus here on could we do it, because it seems to me, and by it then I don't mean could we change people's desires through biomedical means. We know we can do that. All these examples we were told about here, that can be done very easily. The question I'm interested in is whether we could change people's desires, moral motivation, sufficiently to solve the problems that interest Julian and Ingmar Persson in this book. Namely, what they call ultimate harm, preventing ultimate harm. Preventing the extinction of all human life, animal life, forever on Earth. So the question that interests me is whether we could boost our moral motivation in a way that will solve that problem, not whether we could boost moral motivation, because I'm sure we could. Because, of course, the could and the should questions hang together. Because if moral bioenhancement does not help prevent ultimate harm, then it's not so clear we should do it. And the reason for that is spelled out quite nicely in the book, of course, because doing this requires limitations on people's rights and liberties and so on. They may not want to take these medicines, right? They may not want to. So you have to sort of violate a few rights to get this sort of all administered the right way. And that's motivated, that's justified, it's suggested, because it allows us to avoid ultimate harm. But if this wouldn't allow us to avoid ultimate harm, it's not then clear that it would be justified. And this illustrates, of course, it's a thoroughgoing consequentialist approach in the book. That is to say, the moral worth of an action is to be judged by its consequences, its ultimate consequences. And one thing one could do, one could question consequentialism, but I won't do that. That's a long debate in philosophy that we're not going to solve here today. It's also not really my field. I'm a philosopher of mind. So I'm going to talk about human motivation instead, because that interests me. So what we want to change is human behavior. We want to change what we do. And the thing about these very global threats is that it really matters what all of us do. It's not just like the president and the politicians. It matters what we do in our everyday life. Now, on the normal way of looking at things, what we do is, in a simplified way, an upshot of what we desire and what we believe. Desire just meaning in general what we sort of have, what we want. So if I want to get downtown quickly, and I believe the best way of getting downtown quickly is to take the car, I will take the car, all things being equal, all else being equal. If I don't take the car, then either I'm being irrational or something has changed with my desires or my beliefs. So perhaps I desire more strongly than getting on time, quickly downtown, I desire to get some fresh air, so I walk instead. Or perhaps I listen to the radio, I hear the road has been closed off, so I don't believe anymore that the quickest way to get downtown is by taking the car, so I walk. So these are the sort of parameters we are working with here. And the proposal, again, in the book and in the talk here, is that we go for the desires when it comes to the morally relevant behavior we want to get to here. We do something about those. Now, more mice. Except the mice pictures I found on Google were so disgusting, so I had to do Google for cute mice instead. So there is some recent research, which I'm sure you've heard about. It's been published, I think, in Nature, about mice, where they've discovered that you can turn on the parenting cells in male mice, so male mice are terrible parents. They're totally uncaring and just disappear as soon as. So you can turn on the parenting cells in male mice and make them very empathetic and caring and loving fathers. And this is fascinating. And no doubt, there's a neurophysiological basis for parenting capacity in human beings as well, that we have to expect. And that raises an interesting question, right? If we discover that, can we boost the parenting impulse to make people better parents? Maybe we can solve big social problems. Like in the US, they talk a lot about the missing father problem, where mothers grow up in tough conditions, kids grow up in tough conditions with single mothers because fathers took off. So maybe if we could boost the parenting instinct, we could fix that problem. Well, maybe. Because as we saw before, human beings are not mice. Human beings are complex creatures where the actions, what they do, depend on what complex interaction of the psychological states, beliefs and desires foremost. Maybe we could get these guys to stay home with their kids if we boost the parenting instinct, but maybe they have other desires, like the desire to have multiple sexual partners or desire to have a career of their own or whatever. Maybe they have beliefs about what the proper role of mothers and fathers when it comes to children and so on. That will come in the way. Human beings are very complex. And things, of course, are even more complex when it comes to getting human beings to do what's required to solve these very global, huge, horrible threats that we are facing now. And here things can go terribly wrong, both when it comes to belief and desire. Let me say a couple of things about that, and then I'll finish off. So, first of all, we have crazy believers. People who believe that global warming is not happening. I'm going to focus on global warming here. People who believe that it's not a result of human actions. Now, these are not like in little tiny groups. These are large groups of people, especially in the US. I don't remember the percentage now, but it's going down a bit. And I think, and here, of course, it doesn't matter how much you boost their desires. They're not going to do anything about their behavior because they don't think that global warming is a result of human agency. So that won't change anything. So there you have to change the beliefs. And like is said in the book, to change beliefs, you really have to go the traditional means of information and argument and that kind of thing. We're kind of stuck there. You can't do that biomedically. Not very easily. And that, of course, is a huge problem today because people today, I think, believe more crazy things than ever in the, well, maybe not ever in the history of mankind, but there's so many crazy beliefs. And in the face, despite very strong evidence to the contrary, people would believe the craziest things. oh yeah, so this is the Fox News this week, because Google has decided to rank websites by veracity, truth, instead of popularity, which had Fox News go through the roof. And here's what they said on news. They said, well, they say you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. It's a concept not everyone is comfortable with. Well, you're not entitled to your own facts. Facts are facts. This kind of unholy alliance of extreme right-wing positions and relativism, which is, I think, very scary and very widely spread, at least the relativism part. So what to do about that? Then there are lots and lots of perfectly sensible people with good intentions who want to save the world, but who believe that the best way to do that, you can do it without modifying our lifestyle, right? That's a very convenient belief to have. Lots of sensible people believe that. Boosting their desire to be more sympathetic and all that stuff is not going to change their behavior. And then there are lots of problematic beliefs we all have, like mentioned in the book, like bias towards the near future. Those we all have, no matter how much altruism we experience. That's not going to change the behavior, as long as we can't fix that. Now, I'm not saying that fixing the cognitive part is going to be sufficient to solve this problem. I'm saying that it's necessary. So that it's necessary means that if it can't be fixed, then fixing the desires won't help. So we shouldn't do any tinkering with the desires unless we can fix this, which I'm rather pessimistic about. Desire, then, finally. The biggest problem with desire is the competition with other desires that you're going to have. So you can boost the altruism sort of tendencies, but you're going to have competition with other desires. And here I just have to mention No Impact Man. Are you aware of No Impact Man? So there's this guy in New York City who lives with his family who decides to spend 1 year to live in such a way that what his lifestyle is not harmful to the environment. Right? So he quickly discovers what this really entails. He starts out by, going to the farmer's market and taking the bike instead. That's all very nice, except it doesn't go very far. He discovers there has to be no electricity, no travel, no garbage, no disposable diapers, shampoo or soap, no coffee. His wife goes crazy because she can't have coffee, because that, of course, is huge. It travels long distances and so on. Very, very big sacrifices, and this was mentioned in the talk too. Now, these are desires we have, all these things we desire to have, electricity and coffee and so on and so forth. You boost the desire to be altruistic, but you're going to have to compete with these other desires. And the question is, then my question is, don't you have to boost the altruism desire so much so that all the other stuff is subdued? Maybe you even have to medically subdue the other stuff in order for it to actually make a difference to the behavior of the sort required. And then the question really does arise whether we don't become compulsively moral. Now, my worry here is not really that this takes away our freedom to be immoral, because I don't think that's a freedom worth having. My worry is just that it's such a radical change of our psychology for it to actually do the trick. Remember, the trick is to fix global warming. And again, could this be done? Could one really do that? And at what price? Because what happens to human psychology, if the one overriding desire is going to be to do the moral thing, this altruism, what happens to, how will we care for our children, for example? The altruism doesn't sit very well with caring more for some people than others, and so on and so forth. And here I think there's a piece of wisdom from the book which is emphasized over and over again, which is, well, it's very easy to mess up a system, it's much harder to fix it. So I just want to end here with my favorite again. Manners maketh man is his saying. It's an old saying. And that's right, manners maketh man. And it's not easy to change the manners of man. Thank you.